Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this. My name is Kiva Samuel, and I serve. And thank you for joining us for this. Try this once again. Thank you and good evening. Welcome to the July 19th, 2022 meeting of the Planning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. My name is Kiva Samuel. I serve as chair of the Planning Committee, and we will begin this meeting with our hybrid meeting protocols. For those of you who are joining us via Zoom, please mute your audio when you're not speaking. Use only one source of audio. Do not put your phone on hold. Submit questions in the chat box when possible. To request the floor, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and wait to be acknowledged by the chair before proceeding. To make a motion, please state your name before making a first or second, and let's keep our points clear and concise throughout tonight's agenda. Okay. And this meeting has officially been called to order. We will begin with introductions, and I'm going to start with our planning commissioners that are here in the room, beginning from my left.
Elizabeth McMillan, Planning Commission.
John Hamm, Planning Commission.
Sam Spencer, Planning Commission.
Andrew Blumenthal, Planning Commission.
Douglas Walton, Planning Commission.
And we also have some Planning Commission members here in the room with us that are not part of the Planning Committee, but are part of the Zoning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission and are here in support. I would like to acknowledge our Planning Commission Vice Chair, Philip Gussman, in attendance, as well as Planning Commissioner Will Russell. Joining us virtually we have our newest Planning Commission member and new member of the Planning Committee, Commissioner Seeley. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Clayton Seeley. I'm excited to join. I'm the marketing director of the Mint Museum, and I'm just excited to be a part of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Seeley. Are we good? Okay. Okay, and our next agenda topic is the approval of the June 15th, 2022. That is a typographical error in the agenda packet. That should be June 15th, 2022. Meeting minutes. Do we have any discussion, notes, corrections?
For Robert's rules, was anybody present? Was anybody here present for that meeting?
In the room, yes, but not at the dais.
In the room works.
Yes, I was.
Okay. So the motion would be up to y'all.
Approval of the minutes from the meeting June 21st, 2022 for the Planning Committee.
June 15th, 2022.
Oh yes, June 15th.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner McMillan. Do we have a second? Robert's rules allows any second.
Do I need a second? You can, yeah, you can second.
Okay, motion has been properly seconded. I will now do a roll call vote. Commissioner Walton?
It was June 21st.
June 21st, so, okay. So in our agenda packet, let's make that correction, June 21st of 2022 should be the correct date.
The meetings say 21st. The minutes say 21st.
Say again?
The minutes have the date, the 21st.
Gotcha. Okay, so that is the meeting minutes for June 21st, 2022. We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Walton, I believe you were about to make your vote.
Aye.
Blumenthal?
Aye.
Spencer?
Aye.
Ham?
Aye.
McMillan?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Commissioner Seeley?
I have not gone over the minutes just yet, but so I'm going to abstain from this one.
Okay, should we count that as an abstention? Okay. Okay, so that's been properly recorded. We have mandatory referral 2022-24 before us. Let's see, I'll go to it here. And which of our staff members will be reviewing that for us? Alberta, do you want to do staff introduction?
I'm online.
Oh, there you are. Thank you, Alberto. That's why I didn't know he was there. So let me rewind. Let me get reacclimated to planning committee. Let me get reacclimated to in-person meetings. So I'm going to go back in reverse. We did introductions for our planning commissioners, and my apologies, please, that I omitted introductions for our staff members. We will begin with those in the room from my right, please.
Gretchen Flores, planning staff.
Allison Craig, interim planning director.
Kathy Cornett, planning staff.
Zanya Duhaney, planning staff.
Laura Harmon, planning staff.
Alan Goodwin, planning staff.
Arista Strangers from Camiros, not planning staff.
Thank you. And Alberto.
Alberto Gonzalez, planning staff.
Candace.
Candace Roy, planning staff.
Gretchen. Oh, sorry, Lisa.
Lisa Sossaman, General Services Real Estate.
Alicia.
Alicia Osborne, planning staff.
Aaron.
Erin Oliverio, General Services, Landscape Management.
Thank you. And are we acknowledging any other staff members in the room?
Tim Porter, Chief Urban Forester, Planning.
Kevin May, planning staff.
Chris Jeanette with Camiros.
Sandra Montgomery, planning staff.
Andrew Wassel, planning staff.
Yolanda Jones, planning staff.
Mariah Wozniak, planning staff.
And that concludes our round of hot potato with microphone. Thank you, everyone. Now, Mr. Gonzalez, would you please go over and through our 2022-24 mandatory referral?
Sure, we'll do. Good evening, everyone. So this is a submittal by General Services Department for tree canopy preservation. There are 5 parcels, 4 of which are off of Frank Greer Road, and 1 is off of Walnut Avenue. So they're 2 separate maps. Both areas are recommended for neighborhood 1 place type. And this is part of the ongoing process for tree canopy preservation. Are there any general questions or comments? We have Lisa Sossman with General Services Department and Erin as well, if you wish to ask any questions.
Do we have any questions, comments, discussion on this mandatory referral?
Move review with no comments.
Second.
Do you have your script?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for the second. The Planning Committee reviewed mandatory referral report 22-24 on July 19th, 2022, and have no additional comments for the submitting agencies.
Yes, please, officially.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Spencer, second by Commissioner Blumenthal. Commissioner Walton, please.
Aye.
Blumenthal,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Ham,
Aye.
McMillan,
Aye.
Sealy.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that passes unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, our Charlotte UDO update and review of changes, I believe. Allison, are we teeing up or am I going straight to?
Teed up.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is an important night and what's been many years of work. So the UDO really got kicked off in 2016 when we wanted to really address some just conflicts between different ordinances and modernize our regulations. And so began work on the UDO. So I want to first say a big thank you to Laura Harmon, who's the project manager, Camiros, for their efforts, as well as the entire UDO team for really putting all the blood, sweat, and tears into this effort over the last years. So we began in 2016 by forming the Ordinance Advisory Committee to really start to look at this. We hit the pause button in 2018 when we decided to undergo a citywide comprehensive vision. That was another very important step, is decide to take that role in establishing a comprehensive plan for the city that hadn't really been done in 45 years. During that time period, the UDO team did some quick wins, some text amendments of particularly challenging areas, and very importantly, worked on the TOD ordinance, which you all were certainly involved in, which was really served as a template for the future UDO. So since then, the UDO and the comprehensive plan team have been working very closely. We, of course, passed the comprehensive plan last June, June 21st, 2021. And then in the fall, released the first draft of the ordinance. And since then, we've had many meetings with the community, with Planning Commission, with council, have gotten lots of feedback on many different issues. And this is, it's tough trying to balance all the different priorities of all the different residents and bodies of here in Charlotte. Is that sort of the prelude to the end? So we feel as though where we've landed, we've had a couple drafts and now we have some recommended changes that they'll go over this evening that we'd like to consider for council adoption and for committee recommendation, and think that this really provides a balance between all the different things that we've heard. And we certainly are committed to just continuous improvement along the way, and certainly see even post-adoption and effective date. I'm certain we'll have text amendments that we'll bring forward to the group, but really proud of the work that all the team has done to date, and think this is a really solid and important step in the future of Charlotte's growth. So with that, I'll turn it over to Al or Laura. Okay, yeah, turn it over to Laura. Thanks. We just have a very brief presentation tonight. If we can go to the next slide, and obviously we're requesting your recommendations. So we're at the July 11th meeting. No, I'm sorry, we're past the July 11th meeting. Going backwards, with the July 19th meeting. And you can see, getting to this point, we've had a lot of input just even on the second draft since release on the 3rd of June, as well as obviously the public hearing last Monday tonight, and then going to council on August 22nd. So next slide. A little bit just to let you know about the public input process and schedule that we've been through with the second draft. We opened the public comment portal on June 3rd. We had a number of public engagement opportunities from June 3rd to the 30th, including virtual update sessions, UDO open house in this building, and multiple office hours, virtual office hours, where individuals or smaller groups could speak to us. We also accepted comments again through the comment portal,
And we responded to the feedback through the comment portal, and that's all been online. And we also provided you guys some of that information as well, I believe. Next slide. As far as the summary of proposed changes that we are recommending based on the public hearing draft, you received a summary of that. And with that summary, we provided for each item, the article number, the page number. So if you had questions about that, the section or table number, the topic, the description of the change, and the purpose or context of that change. This summary didn't include Scrivener's errors, incorrect references, misspellings, things like that, but we wanted to give you anything that might be considered in the least bit substantive. And what we really found with these changes is that they were not changing in direction for the UDO, but were really more fine tuning. So the changes from the first to second draft and to show in the public hearing draft were in red strike through and blue underline. And then the changes we've made or recommending making to the public hearing draft are highlighted in green. Next slide. We did receive 290 new comments through the portal on the second draft, and that's in comparison to 1,200 plus comments received on the first draft. And based on the feedback we received, we are proposing 70 minor but substantive changes to the public hearing draft. And again, these were really not including Scrivener's errors, misspelling, incorrect references, and examples. And we'll show you some examples of the type of changes were just corrections, minor, really not substantive changes, but actually is a change, and minor substantive changes. Next slide. So an example of something that is a correction, thank you. Always forget that when you're showing this on Zoom, you can't see always the title. Is that we had said that we wanted to eliminate the conservation residential district provision that said it couldn't be used with a voluntary mixed income residential. And yet we failed to get that deleted in the last draft, and we wanted to correct that so that you could use the conservation residential development and voluntary mixed income on the same piece of property. So that is an example of a correction. Next slide. Something that really is not a substantive change, but we added, for example, a definition of pedestrian. So that it's not only anyone who travels on foot, but also those who require assistive devices. And though we really don't think that has a major substantive impact, it is a correction we wanted to bring to people's attention. And the last of these slides is an example of substantive changes where we had some reductions in setbacks for certain frontage types. And this is an example for neighborhood 2, where we reduced for the neighborhood 2C zoning district setbacks from 24 to 20 feet for a 4 to 5 lane Avenue Boulevard, from 30 to 24 feet for 6 or more lane Avenue Boulevard, and for 2 to 3 lane Avenue from 24 to 20 feet. So that we considered a substantive change. Next slide. And we really wanted to just highlight to you all the information we provided to you, what we've done since the public hearing last Monday, and hand it back to you all for discussion.
Thank you, Laura. I think that I would afford each planning commission member in here to speak toward the changes or to the UDO in general, if the body is open to that idea. Commissioner McMillan, I think I would start with. Commissioner McMillan and Spencer are the only 2 commissioners that are on the planning commission that were here at the beginning of the UDO process. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ham as well. So there was three historians along with Laura and Ellen. And I just wanted to speak to that point because it's been a long process. Phil and I joined shortly after, and the TOD was being developed, and these iterations that we've been working through, long hours of a lot of reading, communicating with staff. Most of us are very proud to get to this point. And I'm very happy that Commissioners McMillan, Ham, and Spencer have the opportunity to speak to this before or during their service. So Commissioner McMillan, please.
Thank you. Mark, can you talk through kind of the post-approval process with not only conditional plans, but then also how the UDO becomes enforced as far as, I know the July 23 date, the date that's out there, but how the ordinance starts to become enforced, not just outside of, or mainly outside of the rezoning process.
So I may need a little bit more specificity, that we're looking at June 1st of 2023 for, I need to turn on the microphone, June 1st of 2023. Are there specific questions you have about that as far as?
There's a lot of kind of comments about kind of the process for rezonings and how they, if they're submitted by the end of the year and they're approved by March of 23. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
If they are submitted, I believe we're at 4 months, and that's actually in the ordinance to adopt the UDO. 4 months in advance, they will be able to be, Cindy, correct me if I have the wrong number of months. If it is a conditional rezoning, then it can be approved under the old regulations after the effective date of the UDO. So if someone comes in for a UR2 CD, by the deadline date, they can, after June 1st of 2023, they could still be approved under UR1 CD, for example.
With the current ordinance?
Yes. Yes, they will have a deadline. I think we have 9 months. They, at that point, they do need to be through the process, or that would be no longer a valid petition.
What about just, regular plan approvals? When would the new ordinance start to be measured against? Or
June
plans
1st of 2023,
2023.
the effective date.
So the plans have to be approved by then or just submitted by then?
If you're coming under the previous regulations, they need to be submitted in advance of that date. But if you want to be approved under the UDO, then you can submit in advance. I think we're at 3 months in advance, but they would not be approved until at least June 1st of 2023.
I think I follow that. I was just trying to better understand kind of the process of when this is going to start to be evaluated in real time. If that makes sense.
Yes. And we won't have anything really, well, I think people can test in
They can opt in.
advance.
Yeah, they
Yes,
can opt in.
but they won't be able to get approval under the UDO until June 1st of next year. They can submit, but they can't get approval. But I think we'll all be working on testing and making sure that there aren't things that we need to change. We're committed to doing text amendments even in advance of the effective date if we find things that are not working.
Laura, did you say you would be open to doing text amendments prior to the effective date? Okay.
If we find there are things that are not working, we all agree on that. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I know it said a couple times in the presentation last week that this is a, living document meant to be, evaluated. I was just wondering I feel like the best way to do that is to start to test it. So I was just trying to better understand that process. Is there going to be kind of a routine, like annual kind of text amendment kind of planned, or does it kind of just depend on how things come up?
Probably as things come up. I don't think we'll wait. Maybe when we get 2 or 3 years out, it may be more of a regular 6 month.
I know y'all don't want to do text amendments all the time. I was just
Yeah,
curious.
we'll probably be not waiting till the end of the year.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think Shannon in the Charlotte Development Center is going to use some existing meeting slots for people to come in when they hit a roadblock in permitting and get immediate feedback that week, whether or not it's a, clarification or an interpretation, or if it needs a text amendment, so you can get information quickly as to make sure you're moving forward.
I got one more, can I have one more question? Talking about the alignment rezoning process, that one of the responses on one of the pages that I have, it talks about doing that kind of in groups. Is that going to based on like kind of the larger area plans that you would do kind of alignment rezonings at that point?
We are still working through what that looks like. So we've been meeting really across most of our divisions the last few weeks, talking about how those two align with one another. And so, the desire is to get through them as quickly as possible, and to make sure that we're talking about area planning and rezonings together, because that's how the community really will experience it. But the details are still under works right now.
Appreciate that. And last question, I guess, can you opt into that? If you have a conditional approved plan in those areas, you can opt into that option. Is that right? Into the alignment rezoning? Or is that still a detail that's being?
Still a
rezooned?
detail that,
Yeah, great. Right.
The thing is, with all the different conditional plans, there's so many of those that, if you go and try and tackle every single one of those, you could just get bogged down. So we're trying to figure out which ones do we, do in this process and which ones should we wait on.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner McMillan. Commissioner Ham, please.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot. I commend you all for the work. A lot of my concerns were addressed early on, but I would like to echo what Elizabeth just mentioned, that we need to make sure this is a living, breathing document, because things change all the time. I can't remember the community I heard last night on the news that's trying to become a historical district, so that can kind of McCrory Heights, so that can totally shift what you all may have been thinking. So let's just keep that in mind. But overall, my concerns were addressable earlier on.
Thank you, Commissioner
I
Ham.
can just respond to that really quick too. I think also there are two committees established, as a result of the comprehensive plan. And certainly there may be things that come out of those that will need to get into the ordinance, at a later date. They just got started, so it's hard to say. So absolutely, it'll be living document.
Commissioner Spencer.
All right. So I want to use my time tonight to address a lot of the just mistruths that have been said about the Unified Development Ordinance for anybody who's listening at home or online. I think it's really important to note, number one, that this document, as it is before us tonight, would keep the vast majority of Charlotte residential housing single family. I think that there has been a campaign of mistruths and outright lies that have said that this UDO in single family zoning in Charlotte. I want to state for the record that that is completely untrue. This document not only preserves all single family housing that exists in HOAs and other covenant neighborhoods, but also I think for the vast majority of Charlotteans, the character of their neighborhood's not going to change. But what this document is going to do is that this document's going to create more opportunity, more affordable housing, and a more better modern system of doing business, doing planning, and creating our built environment. And so I definitely want to applaud the staff and my colleagues on this board who've been working on this for 6-7 years, since I was appointed in 2015. It's a long process, but we got here by talking to the entire community. We got here by putting this plan and the comprehensive plan before it under intense scrutiny, public comments. As Laura and Allison went through, there have been literally thousands of public comments on both the UDO and the comprehensive plan that it flows from. So I think what's important to note with this document is that we in government We have a chance, every day, little by little, to create incremental change. And whether that's getting more affordable housing units in rezoning, or whether that's making sure that a rezoning better reflects the neighborhood, or maybe we work with a developer to get more pedestrian infrastructure so that more Charlotteans are safe and more kids can go walk and people can live better lives. It's very rarely that we get to take a big jump forward that's a little more than incremental change. And I know that we have great public servants here in our planning department in the city who have literally been working their entire careers to make things like this a reality. And I think that that's something that us as appointed officials and our elected officials should respect. Because one of the things that we have really lost in civic society and in our country lately is the idea that the mob has more authority than experts. And every now and then, I think we should listen to people who are experts, people who've done something their entire life. I wouldn't want somebody from the comment section on Reddit to perform my appendectomy. Why should they be, hijacking our planning process? So on the other hand, we've heard from a lot of people. We have read all these comments. All of us have gone through each of every one of these, and I'll be the first person to say, I don't like everything that's in the UDO. It's not perfect. There are places where I wish it went farther. There are places where I wish we could have gotten more. But I'm going to vote for and support this tonight, maybe with a small amendment, because this is the best way for our city to go forward. And I just want to, again, applaud our staff and our leadership in the planning department for making this a reality. Let's do this.
Thank you, Commissioner Spencer. Blumenthal.
Thank you for the tough act to follow, Sam. But in all seriousness, I think most of not my concerns, but my comments have really already been addressed. I think Commissioner Weldon and I were just talking about this. There's obviously the situation where you could overanalyze and get too into the weeds and question yourself so often that you don't actually produce anything. So kind of in the same vein as Commissioner Spencer, I think that I'm happy to support the document this evening with the full knowledge that once it's out there, there will be a lot to learn. There will be a lot of feedback, and it's probably going to feel like it's coming out of a fire hose at first. On that note, kind of one quick addition, I would love to find, and that may already be in place, but some sort of mechanism by which any complications, complaints, feedback come back to the planning committee. I know we only meet once a month, and you guys plan on addressing everything on a continual basis, right? But even if it's just a quick summary, just so that we're kept abreast of everything as well, I think that'll be very educational for us, and who knows, maybe we'll have feedback as well. Only other question I really had, and I'm gonna let the quad thing lie, but only other question I really had was a follow-up to Commissioner McMillan, Laura, as it relates to the implementation. So we have that implementation date, June 1st, 2023. And you mentioned even beyond that, conditional rezonings that are in the pipeline would still be considered, correct?
That's right, for 9 months after that.
For 9 months. What about conventional?
Conventional would convert, the application would convert on the effective date.
Okay, got it.
It translates.
And then in theory, say November, December this year, assuming everything goes according to schedule, we could go ahead and submit a petition based on the adopted future policy map, but that wouldn't be approved until after June 1st.
It would actually be for conditional, I think we said 4 months, for conventional 3 months in advance that you could get in the hopper.
That's the earliest that you can get in. Okay, got it. No, other than that, thank you again for all your time. That's it for me.
Commissioner Walton.
One of the fun parts about going after everybody else is everybody said all the things that you were going to say. But I will just reiterate the fact that we should be very appreciative to staff for the efforts that they've put into this. I hope that I personally was not too much of a pain,
I don't think I was really, because I'm nice. And one of the things I believe is that that there is an agile way of dealing with this particular type of adventure, and that involves getting it out there and getting feedback from the people that are using it as quickly as possible. And I hope that going forward, the Planning, Design, and Development Department has that agility to deal with these things, because as Andrew said, there's probably going to be, all of a sudden this will be there and people will go, oh my God, what have I done? And there will be some of those reactions. And I believe that the document in and of itself goes in generally the right direction. We can all sit here for days and argue the nitpicky little points and get into the weeds as it is. But I believe that those places where there are loopholes or things that you just didn't consider because somebody got a little creative or innovative with a project, those will be made plain as day as soon as this document hits the road. And so I will be supportive as well, and look forward to getting some additional feedback as those items come up.
Thank you, Commissioner Walton. I'd also like to afford the opportunity to speak to this regard to Commissioner Russell, if he so chooses.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I too am appreciative of the work that staff has done. I know that this has been quite a heavy lift. If we think about it, it hasn't been done in 30, 40 plus years. And so it is going to be hard to train our development community who have understood the risk for 30 years. And it's going to be even harder to train our residents who have been living with the biggest investments that they'll ever make in most of their lives, which is their home. And so there's always going to be that thought of territoriality and protecting my home, protecting my investment. So that is important. But I am in support of the work that was done. Does it go as far as I would like to see it go? It does not. But you can rest assured I will be pushing for said text amendments in order to to increase that, especially around home affordability and smaller infill and incremental development, which I think is sorely needed, but is not addressed in this current draft. However, I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of good. I think this is a good document, and I look forward to supporting it from afar, and hope that my colleagues here tonight will vote to move it forward to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. And Mr. Vice Chair, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep my comments short. Everything that has been stated about the plan is true. And at first thought, I was going to spend a lot of time talking about how many hours we put into it, but I felt like that would just cost us more hours. So all of us, and literally hundreds of people in this city, have imprinted on this plan. And I do feel it is the best plan for us right now. We will have to change it. We said that at the very beginning of this process. And I believe that our staff and our boards and commissions serve ready to do that and continue to be a voice for the community and for good and proper development in our city. This is the plan we need, and I'm in full support.
Thank you, Commissioner Gussman. And hate to put you on the spot, Commissioner Seeley, but you have the floor if you so choose.
So I also have the unique situation that everyone has said what I wanted to say before me. While I have, according to my clock, 46 minutes on this commission, I have a wealth of experience with this plan. I served on OAC since 2020. I was very close with Taiwo through the process. And this is something that has been a passion project of mine from afar. And while, yes, like everyone says, this is not perfect. Very few plans are perfect. I personally was born and raised in Charlotte, lived here the majority of my life, and I cannot afford the neighborhood that I grew up in. And I would like to see more opportunities in my neighborhood for people to live that grew up there. So I support this plan because I know it's the right way. And I know that we still have opportunities to make fixes where needed as we go through the process. So that's, give you the rest of the time, but just short and sweet. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Seeley. As has been said so many times already tonight, actually, I'll start mine with thank yous. The interim planning director that I believe kicked off the UDO process was Ed McKinney. Thank you, Ed. Thank you to in that earlier UDO iteration, it became glaringly clear that it was quite a difficult feat to be able to marry all these policies together, these ordinances together, without a comprehensive vision for the city. So through permission of council, the urging of this body, the Planning Commission, our then planning director, Taiwo Jayoba, led planning staff through the comprehensive plan for our city, the Charlotte Future 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Thank you, Taiwo Jayoba. The two of you had clones. Thank you to the Ordinance Advisory Committee. Those who were there in the first iteration of the Ordinance Advisory Committee, which mind you, started off very small and has been expanded as we move through the UDO process. Endless meetings. I think I heard there were some upwards of about 70 meetings of the OAC. Is it that close? Somewhere in there? Not only that, but the preparation that you have to do in order to attend OAC meetings. I know many of us watch council sessions, transportation committee meetings, just to stay abreast of all the information that has come forth that feeds into what we do and what you guys do. So thank you so very much. As I said before, the UDO became clearly obvious that it was quite a difficult thing to accomplish without a solid vision for the city. So to put a pause or to kind of run it parallel with the development of the Charlotte Future 2040 plan, it's quite impressive. I think there was a member of School of Government that visited the Planning Commission, and we wondered, we asked, had there been any other municipality that attempted that feat to his knowledge? And the answer was no. So that puts this planning department, I think, just a shade above, especially Raleigh, sorry, no shade. That's very impressive. But that goes to the dedication that your team has. Thank you, all of you. Many of my fellow committee members mention, this is a living, breathing document. It's going to be revisited regularly. The reason why we make comments like that, I think some of us are looking for, like the comp plan has a set date at which it will be regularly reviewed, and there's, some form or fashion around that process. The UDO, however, as Laura pointed out, They won't wait until an annual update or a biannual update or every 3 years. They can't stick to a schedule such as that because could be something that happens that it becomes fairly urgent and needs to be addressed very immediate. And I appreciate having the flexibility to do that baked into the UDO. But one of the reasons why we're asking is because we're all heavily invested. McMillan, Ham, and Spencer have been here since the beginning. Gusman and I have been here for the past 5 years. We're all excited to see this thing come to this point. But I want to be clear that we are anxious to make sure that everyone knows that it's living and breathing because we want to see it strengthened. We don't want there to be any minimizing, dismissing, or just strike through of the UDO. We are making those comments to make sure that we support staff in continuing to strengthen the document so that it is a working document for the entire city. Thank you, staff. I think that I will end my comments there. And Commissioner Spencer.
So I would like to make some very quick questions of staff, and then I think I will have a motion. So there have been some questions about amending or making possible changes to the UDO, and I've heard from constituents and other stakeholders about possible changes that we could make. But I guess I wanted to hear from staff. Why is this, the best document possible that we can approve now? And how do we address some of those concerns? Specifically, I know there's one concern about 16.8 with open space requirements. Obviously, we have the concern that we've heard many times about single family housing. But I just want to, ask staff, because we've heard so much and because I want to make sure that everybody who sent us comments knows that their voice has been heard.
Sure, I'll start and say, as we mentioned before, there have been so many different engagement opportunities and ways in which people can provide their feedback. And we really listened to each and every one of those, considered each and every one of those, and a lot of times found a middle ground, or a lot of times found, areas where we have made a decision as a city in terms of policy as to where, how we want Charlotte to grow. And the UDO implements that. So the UDO is not intending to create a new visionary document. It's intended to implement the vision that we've already established. And so I think, as it relates to single family zoning, you mentioned that specifically, there are parameters within the document that put some guardrails in essence on where duplexes and triplexes can be built. There's height requirements, so it's maintaining community character. There's driveway dimensional standards in order to not have a triplex with 3 driveways in front. So I think that we've really found a balance between creating something that's workable, that implements the vision that we established in the comprehensive plan. And we've already started to talk through what are the different scenarios in which we make updates. And so some of those may be technical in nature. If you are just in permitting and you hit a roadblock and suddenly how do you move that project forward? We don't want to be a barrier to good projects bringing forward. And so we have a path for that. But then there'll be other policy items that will come up, whether it's in permitting or whether it's in commissions or committees or council. This body brings it forward that we'll want to bring to a larger group like the Ordinance Advisory Committee for further discussion and refinement. So I think, and I believe that we've really thought through every single comment that's been received. We responded to every single one. There's been a number of emails that have come through council members that we responded to. And I think that we've landed in a place in which I think we're looking forward, and also just making sure that we're we're not moving the community too fast in areas where we might have concerns about displacement and other things that I know we're working on in other council committees. So I feel very good about where we've landed for today, and we have passed to continue the conversation when we need to.
And my final question is, there are two amendments I considered bringing, and one would be to require a conditional rezoning for any gas station or auto-centric use aside from drive-throughs, which I know that we're working very hard on strong prescribed conditions for drive-through uses. But would that request have to be part of the recommendation, or could we advise staff as of that request between now and the final council vote?
The challenge with that is, as you know, from being on zoning committee, that if we make a change between now and the council vote, that we have the 3/4 vote not to bring back to committee. So that probably gives you enough information to know that we would prefer not to be in that situation of something potentially coming back, particularly to a new committee that does not have the background that you all.
I appreciate the input. And my second question is, would staff have any objection in the consistency statement to adding a bullet point below the UDO provides greater predictability in the development process, a bullet point that says that the UDO will continue to reflect the predominantly single-family character of Charlotte neighborhoods?
I don't think we have any objection to you putting that in there if you think that's important as a committee.
All right. Well, Madam Staff, I have used everybody's time enough. So Madam Chair, I would like to make the following motion. Having reviewed the draft Unified Development Ordinance UDO and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff, I move that we recommend approval of the draft UDO as modified as follows, that it requests a conditional rezoning for gas station and auto-centric uses other than drive-throughs, and the adoption of the consistency statement as modified as follows by adding a bullet point at the end of the consistency statement saying the UDO reflects the predominantly single-family character of Charlotte neighborhoods.
So before we vote, I want to have Commissioner Spencer repeat that motion for the benefit of staff who were diligently making notes. I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to reply if one is necessary. So Commissioner Spencer, once more on the requested addition and the bullet point.
Having reviewed or I'll just use the requested addition. The requested addition is to ask for conditional rezonings for all gas station and automobile intensive uses in each new zoning district. And the modification to the approval statement is the UDO reflects the predominantly single-family character of Charlotte neighborhoods. I think I said the same thing twice.
Can I ask a point of clarity on that just one more time? Holding up paper for those who are not, you want to put an extra bullet point here, right? That was the second thing.
Yes.
And the point about gas stations is where is it on this piece of paper?
No, it's in approximately page 256, somewhere in in the usage charts and would change what currently says prescribed conditions
Okay.
to a conditional rezoning and
And in doing that, there will be changes to the document, which means council will have to ask, am I remembering what Laura said correctly? Then council will say, there were changes, the staff will say whether they believe they're substantive or not, and they could potentially vote to send that back.
If we can get clarity tonight, and I do have a question in a minute, it would not have to, they would not have to vote not to send it back because
Okay.
it would be not a change after zoning committee. Technically, you'd be making the change as part of this meeting.
Okay, oh,
Yeah, and
I
that's the
see
only-
what you
that's-
did there.
That's the only reason it's part of the motion.
Light bulb happening. Okay. Although the only other point I would say is the bullet point that you want to add about single family housing, I do not believe is necessary. So therefore, I'm not as in love with that as you are. I believe that that is said in many other documents, in many other places, and is not necessary for the passing of the UDO.
Would you, Commissioner Walton, vote no if the bullet point remained?
I'm not immediately saying that I would vote yes. That is the problem. I don't want to be in this situation that I feel like, oh, now we just got this and it's plopped right here in front of us. And I believe, and again, I believe that it is said in many other places. So I'm wondering why we need to reiterate it here.
If it's the feeling of the committee, I'm happy to withdraw the second part of my motion.
And please, I'm having my reaction over here. So others may have different reactions.
I don't disagree with that, with Commissioner Welton's proposal. Can you help me understand the reasoning for the conditional plan of gas stations?
Absolutely. So I think for the reason I wanted to propose this change is because there were many rezonings over my past 7 years on Planning Commission where I felt that I had to vote no on things that would probably not or have a gas station use at the time, but because they were using the rezoning process for a conventional rezoning, they could have at any time in the future. I would have loved to have voted for many of those projects, especially projects brought by the airport department and the city. I ultimately did not. This change would, if anybody in the future, and I know Kiba's had similar reservations about some of the gas station zonings, that would allow for more yes votes and more unanimity from the Planning Commission is mainly my point, because I wish I had been able to vote for a lot more of those projects.
So just to understand, you said you reviewed a lot of gas stations, conventional zonings before, and you turned them down.
No, usually it would be a conventional I-1 or I-2 that probably was not going to have a gas station, but could have in the future because it was a conventional rezoning.
So you would like. So you could
Use your microphone.
So in theory, with the conditional rezoning, you could still rezone to I-1 or I-2, but exclude those uses in the future. Whereas with a conventional, somebody else could, in theory, a new developer could buy that property and put a gas station up, even if that wasn't the original petitioner's intention. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If there was I-2 without the, what would we say, gasoline related uses? Yeah, it generally comes down, and I appreciate Commissioner Spencer's principle on this, because he's been very consistent on saying he asks the questions and it comes up, but that is not a differently delineated place type, I guess, in the end. And I I can understand why you want to get this resolved, and, if we can get that part.
Does it have the opposite effect that if your gas station was allowed in an I-1 zoning and you wanted to do a conventional zoning for a warehouse, would it not have the opposite effect if you're making a conditional plan of the I-1 zoning?
No, it means I wouldn't vote, me or future Sam, whoever, has these opinions in the future, would vote for the warehouse because because if it has to be conditional to be a gas station, that means that their warehouse usage, they by right, they will have all of the rights that they have in ML1 or ML2, which is the new I1 and I2 in a lot of ways. But they won't have the by right for the gas station use, making it easier for people with that sort of concern to vote in favor.
Keeping in mind also that adding this request doesn't ensure the outcome of any conditional rezoning or conventional for that matter. It just adds a level of scrutiny to have the opportunity to address the concern.
So for the record, I would like to withdraw my the second half of my motion, and I'll read the motion to say, having reviewed the draft Unified Development Ordinance and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff, I move that we recommend approval of the draft UDO as modified as follows, with what I've previously said, and the adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Blumenthal, second.
And I think Allison wants to speak to, and Laura.
I think we're going to say the same thing. I think in your motion, you need to be more specific about you can't just say auto-centric uses because it needs to be very specific.
I agree. Can I borrow the big book really quickly?
Along with that, I think also, so we're super clear that if we can list the zoning districts we're talking about as well.
The list of uses permitted, right? So it should be just a red line moment.
Yes.
Gas station, these zoning districts, this use, these zoning districts.
Yes. So on with as modified as follows, with on page 15.8 of the public hearing draft of the Unified Development Ordinance, that all mentions of PC for gas stations under ML1, ML2, IMU, NC, CAC1, CAC2, and Todd TR change from
They say slow down.
CG and CR also.
CG and CI.
CR.
Yeah, the use matrix is split into two different sections because there are so many districts. So for the gas station use, you also have to look at page 15-3, which allows gas stations in the CG and CR districts.
And in CG and CR. You're really making me pay for this.
Yeah. And we would like to clarify where it says PC, that it should be C/PC, because we don't want to lose prescribed conditions.
And with the clarification that it should be C and PC, so it will be conditional and have the prescribed conditions. And that applies to the gas station in the aforementioned zoning districts, as well as vehicle repair facility major in ML1 and ML2. Vehicle repair facility minor in ML1, IMU, NC, CAC1, CAC2, and TOD/TR. And also in CG and CR. And there will be, and after talking with staff, I have withdrawn any desire to change for drive-through establishment.
Captured, Laura?
We read that back to me. One more
We need the
time,
book.
just to make sure.
We might need the book back then.
So a change to, from PC to C/PC for gas stations, for CG and CR, ML1, ML2, IMU, NC, CAC1, CAC2, and TODTR. I'm looking to you guys to check too. Vehicle repair major, change from PC to C/PC for ML1 and ML2. And the same change for vehicle repair minor for CG, CR, ML1, IMU, NC, CAC1, CAC2, and TODTR.
I agree.
Very good. Okay, so
That was all in
our,
the motion, right?
yes.
And there's a second.
The motion was made by Commissioner Spencer and seconded by Commissioner Blumenthal. We will now have our roll call vote. Commissioner Seeley,
Yay.
Welton,
Aye.
Blumenthal,
Aye.
Ham,
Aye.
McMillan, Spencer.
Aye.
The chair votes an emphatic aye.
And can we get the hands up on this one?
You ready, Phil? Hold it. Elizabeth, picture time. Thank you. Oh, you got to get Clay. Clay, we'll Photoshop you in.
Just send me the picture. I'll Photoshop it. And
There
I
you
meant to
go.
say aye, sorry, not yay. I think I was excited.
Thank you for not retiring.
We're not worthy.
Thank you, Planning Committee. I appreciate everybody digging in, taking the time, reviewing in short order, changes, paying attention, tuning in, your engagement. I appreciate all of you. We will now, the work isn't done. Our Chief Urban Forester will now take us through tree ordinance update before that recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Commission members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight on proposed amendments to the Charlotte Tree Ordinance. This presentation will look very similar to the previous presentation, as the proposed amendments are happening in conjunction, and I do mean in conjunction with the UDO initiative, and are only happening because of the UDO. And I'll jump right in unless there's any need to pause for a moment. So proposed amendments to the Charlotte Tree Ordinance support the comprehensive plan policy and the core themes of the Unified Development Ordinance. They are largely procedural in nature. Existing development regulations in the Charlotte Tree Ordinance will be repealed and deleted. One new significant regulatory item will be added. That's the non-development component of the proposed heritage tree regulation. And all proposed amendments have been included in all UDO engagement and review processes throughout the entire life of the UDO initiative.
As I mentioned, this presentation is very similar to the previous one. All proposed amendments to the Charlotte Tree Ordinance have been included in the UDO process. Specific to the tree ordinance on this slide, the release of the draft amended tree ordinance was issued on July 7th. A public hearing took place the same night as the UDO public hearing. Specific to the tree ordinance, as far as reporting out and providing information to key committees and boards, staff went before city council multiple times and targeted UDO work sessions where all these amendments were part of the process, particularly focusing on heritage trees, the non-development component of heritage trees. We were before this board in June, City Council Subcommittee, the TAP Committee, and the Charlotte Tree Ordinance, or excuse me, the Charlotte Tree Commission. Exactly like the UDO, the proposed amended draft of the Charlotte Tree Ordinance is redlined for items that are going to be removed and deleted. Additions are in blue text underlined. Again, with an overview, it's largely procedural in nature. The key item I want to share on these changes is the reason for them are based on a strategic shift after the first draft of the UDO. Upon reviewing all stakeholder and public comments, consulting with the attorney's office, it was determined that the first strategy, which intended to completely repeal the existing tree ordinance and move all development and non-development regulations into the UDO, was not the most appropriate path forward. The new strategy in the second draft is to keep the standalone tree ordinance, keep all non-development regulations in that standalone ordinance, and delete all development regulations from that ordinance and shift them into the UDO. Should have advanced my slide a little bit earlier as I just talked over that, but there's the strategy again, was shifting from a complete deletion of the tree ordinance to really reducing it and removing all development regulations to place them in the UDO. The one substantive change is to add the non-development heritage tree regulation, because that's intended to apply to all property in the city limits outside of development situations. This is more of a detailed dive into the specific amendments. I'm happy to discuss any of these. Again, all development regulations will be removed. There is a component of adding the duties and responsibilities of my current position to the tree ordinance. The same thing's happening in the UDO. Planning and my current position is the lead administration entity and position for tree regulations in both ordinances. Any development related definitions will be removed. Any new definitions needed to support and complement the non-development heritage tree regulation will be added. There's minor corrections to correct misspellings and incorrect references. I'm happy to explain anything else or take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have any questions on the tree ordinance amendment? The tree ordinance was adopted, recommended by this body 2 years ago.
Text amendment to the
Text
tree
amendment to the
ordinance
tree
a
ordinance.
few years ago.
Excuse me. And this is now the second one as part of the UDO. As Tim stated, all development related regulations will move to the UDO and out of the actual tree ordinance. So do we have any questions for Tim? Any comment, any discussion?
Just one question for staff. Is it true that this new version of the tree ordinance will do more to preserve Charlotte's tree canopy and get us closer to our goal of 50% tree canopy in Mecklenburg County by 2050?
Yes, absolutely. The addition of the non-development heritage tree regulation will directly target that and target the reduction of tree canopy loss in residential areas, lead to more preservation and planting in those areas. Additionally, there is a minor clarifying addition to emphasize the protection and preservation status of city street trees. Those two items together will directly accomplish greater planting and preservation efforts to sustain Charlotte's tree canopy.
You mentioned the exemptions being removed in the frontage.
In the UDO, there are many additional provisions added to increase preservation and planting. In this specific tree ordinance, all development regulations will be removed, and I do want to make that distinction that the development regulations will live in the UDO, and there's significant additions there to move the needle forward on preservation and planting that will help reduce the loss of canopy and increase planting to grow the canopy. And that carries forward into the standalone tree ordinance as well for the non-development tree regulations. Hopefully that answered and clarified.
Absolutely. And just, but it also means, and it's our responsibility to ask the manager and the council to budget so that we can continue to do that.
Yes, thank you for those comments.
Any other comments, discussion, questions for Tim?
Quick one, just to tag on to what Sam said. I guess throughout this and this entire process, there's this dashboard that will feed back information. Will there be information about the tree canopy that's a part of that? And I assume, Tim, that you are in the loop on that, but I don't know when we'll see that information, I guess.
Yes, I'll be leading the effort to coordinate and implement comprehensive plan tree canopy policy and the efforts of the UDO to plant preserve trees. And we'll be reporting out and monitoring all those efforts. There's an implementation dashboard that'll be available for a comprehensive plan policy and programs related to tree canopy. In the future, we have planned work related to conducting an additional tree canopy analysis, an update to the urban forest master plan, and the overall tree canopy goal of 50 by 50. That's something that we're discussing with City Council now as a next step in this, I would say, a 3-year period that we're in of critical tree canopy crossroads moment. This is, a very big step, the UDO and the amendments to the tree ordinance. The next step are those 3 policy initiatives I just mentioned. So we'll be reporting out on all of that routinely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Last call for Tim. Any questions, comments, discussion? I think we are good. Commissioners McMillan or Ham, would you like to move?
I'll make a motion to approve. Motion to approve, having reviewed the draft text amendment for the tree ordinance and considered the consistency statement prepared by staff, I move that we recommend approval of the tree ordinance text amendment as it appears before us and adoption of the consistency statement as it appears before us.
Motion by Ham, second by McMillan. We will now go through roll call vote. Walton.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
McMillan.
Aye.
Sealy.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And last but not least, on our agenda tonight, I kind of skipped this at the top of the agenda, item number 3, I think it is. We need to select the vice chair for the planning committee. Not to be confused with Mr. Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. Each committee obviously works in different groups, and we need to select our vice chair of the Planning Committee tonight before we depart. And as such, I will now open the floor to nominations.
This is Commissioner Welton. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Blumenthal for Vice Chair of the Planning Committee.
Second.
Motion by Walton, second by Spencer. 1, 2, 3. Am I doing a?
Are there any nominations?
Yes. Are there? Do you want to stay on another 3 years? Me? Yes. No. Any other nominations? No, they're not. Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations for vice chair of the planning committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission?
move that we close the floor for nominations and elect Commissioner Blumenthal by acclamation.
Motion to close nominations and nominate and vote for Blumenthal acclamation. We will go through our roll call now. McMillan.
Aye.
Ham.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Blumenthal.
Aye.
Welton.
Aye.
Sealy.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair votes aye. Welcome, Mr. Vice Chair. And with that, again, I just can't express appreciation enough for the time and dedication, blood, sweat, and tears staff put forth. Planning Commission will be behind you as you move forward to council, and let us know how we can continue to support. Thank you, everyone. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I also heard a second. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.